Hey, dude, you all set?
Yeah, this is going to be good.
And you said you got a new mic.
Yeah, my new headphones have one built in, and I've got recording software this time, so we should actually be in better shape.
Okay, cool. Let me just... Alright, I want to test this out. Give me a level.
Do what now?
Just say something so we can make sure this mic stuff's working right.
Right. Ignite the light
Dude, no,
and
not...
let it shine.
We talked about this.
Just on the night like the 4th of July. 'Cause baby,
damn
I'm
it.
a firework.
You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Never doing that again.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Boy, you really do have such a lovely speaking voice there, Nathan.
Well, I get it from my mom. She was a voice major, so I guess, a lot of that classical training just kind of rubbed off on me. Music has just always run in my family like that, I suppose.
It's in the blood.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Welcome. Woo! ShallowCast, episode 2.
Episode 2, The Revenge of the Sith. That was episode 3. I ruined it already.
You ruined it already.
Wow.
Really, it is ShallowCast then.
Oh, yeah. ShallowCast Strikes Back. That's what I was going for.
Yes,
Yeah.
my favorite.
That'd be episode
my
5,
favorite.
though,
But that's another tale for another day.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, ShallowCast, episode 2, now with a fully fledged proper logo.
An actual, factual logo that I commissioned from a very good Tumblr friend of mine, actually. My friend Bonaventure, or Bonaventure, I always say Bonaventure, but it's probably not that. My friend Bonaventure is a really talented artist, and Xander and I were trying to figure out a logo to use, and I was like, we should just commission Bonaventure to make one for us, because she's a really good artist. And then I showed Xander some of Bonaventure's work, and he agreed that it was really good. And so,
very nice.
Yeah, she's so good. And so I commissioned her to make us a little logo. I told her kind of what we were hoping for. She sent me some ideas, and I was a good client and to have stupid demands or requests about them, and then we finalized it, and it is pretty gorgeous, honestly. I love it.
It is pretty gorgeous. I love it too. It's very, very neat. Don't actually have long hair quite like that at the moment, but I prefer long hair.
That was in the picture that I sent. Well, because I thought that was what you wanted, was the long hair.
Oh, it is. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I just don't have it right now.
Yeah,
I wish I did, but I don't.
Oh, well. It really captures my eyebrows, is what I like about it.
Eyebrows.
Oh, yeah. The source of my power.
Nathan Lee. Ha! That's for 3 nerds in the audience. So how you been, man? It's been a couple weeks since the last episode.
It has been a couple weeks. I've been good. I've been working a lot, and I've also been keeping track.
Well, that makes one of us.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, it keeps me busy. But I've been following the news on Pacific Rim, the news on the Godzilla reboot, and trying to just keep track of cool giant monster stuff that's happening right now as we wait for things like The Hobbit to be released and we wait for Pacific Rim's debut.
Oh yeah, dude, I still can't wait for that. Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing too. I haven't been working quite as much as you, but what I've been doing is just keeping up with movie news. Pretty excited because we talked last time about how a week or so before that episode that a bunch of Disney stuff would come out, and it looks like in June they're going to be doing it all over again. Atlantis: The Lost Empire, Lilo and Stitch, and Emperor's New Groove are all getting Blu-ray releases, and it looks like they're all on the same day again. So
that's pretty awesome.
More money for the mouse.
Oh well, I mean, not like they need it, but they're very good about releasing the right movies at the right time. Emperor's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch, Atlantis, they're all kind of niche movies that didn't have huge audiences, I guess, except for Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, Lilo and Stitch was huge.
It was actually really big, yeah. But they had a bigger marketing push for it than Atlantis or Emperor's New Groove, and that's what made the difference, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so it's really cool that they're all coming out on the same day.
Yeah.
So more money to spend on things I don't actually need.
Well, It's still nice
That's
to
what
have
being a
them,
fan is, right?
basically. That and being continually disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were talking about giant monsters there just a little bit, and that's actually, as we're moving right along, that's actually what our subject for this week is in general, is just giant monsters.
That is what this episode is all about.
Last time we mentioned that we're both really big fans of it, and we actually talked about a little bit about how we grew up with them, but this week I wanted to talk about it in length just because I've been watching some of my old kaiju stuff again, and then you actually saw something online that you directed me towards that you wanted to talk about.
I saw an indie film because I am so artsy and hipstery that I only watch indie movies these days. But
yes, totally.
I watched a really good independent kaiju film. But do we I just realized we haven't done intros yet, who we are and stuff.
Oh, really? I thought that was already assumed. I mean,
well, I guess it's assumed. I don't know if that's
because
something
we're clearly talented and handsome and famous already. That everyone knows who we are.
Well, I know. I just okay, that's true. My crippling insecurity leads me to believe that I have to remind people of who I am constantly, which is why I'm always texting you my name in capital letters.
That's not insecurity. That's narcissism.
Oh, I thought it was really.
Yeah, that's narcissism.
Oh, okay. No, narcissism is if I assume that everybody already knows, because how could they not?
Oh, well, that's true.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
I have a little bit of both, though. So
I'm making up definitions now.
It's okay. It works. I didn't.
Okay. For the sake of continuity, I am of course Xander Grimm,
and I am Nathan Soros,
and we're ShallowCast.
This is us. This is the thing. That is what we do and are.
This is the thing, and it is acceptable.
Here we go.
All right, so back onto the subject of giant monsters. What actually kind of got me back in the mood is I decided to watch Cloverfield again because I own it and it is amazing. And then I watched Godzilla Final Wars, and then I watched Cloverfield because those are two of my favorite kaiju movies of all time.
Yeah.
And so that's what put me in the mood to talk about giant monsters. And then Nathan brought up the little indie kaiju film that he saw, and so that's how we got the idea to talk about them the whole episode this time. So why don't you, because I'm fairly certain that everybody knows what Godzilla Final Wars and Cloverfield both are, and so we'll save that till a little bit later. But why don't you tell me a little more about, or rather our audience a little more about this film that you showed me, because I have watched it. But yeah, why don't you just kind of take the wheel?
All right. Okay. Well, then I will start our first topic off by telling you guys about Gehara, the dark and long-haired monster. Was that like a change topics noise? Is that what that was?
Oh yeah. I figured since we're trying to become a little bit more professional here, I figured it was time for a change topic noise so people know when we're changing topics, so it's not just a endless, mindless bleed of information.
I love that. That's a good touch. Was that Rodan? Was that him roaring? Is that what that was?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I probably imagined it. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. As far as Gehara goes, it's an independent movie. That's basically a kaiju fan film. It was done as a tribute to the giant monster movie genre in general. It's about 20 minutes long. The entirety of the film is up on YouTube. It also had a really limited DVD and Blu-ray release, and it's super good because it's a parody of and a tribute to giant monster films at the same time. There's a lot of references to classic kaiju film. There's a lot of moments in it that are just straight out of the really the golden age of kaiju movies, the best old Godzilla films with aliens and giant monster attacks and stuff. But it's a pretty basic kaiju film as far as the plot goes. There's a giant monster that rises out of the sea, and he attacks a city and is chased off with the use of an experimental military weapon. But what really makes the film unique, I felt,
it's an oscillating fan.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wasn't gonna spoil that. It's what makes the movie unique is that Gehara, as a monster, he's covered in really long dark hair, and it's this big shaggy lizardy dog creature, and he smells bad, and his hair sheds everywhere as he's attacking the city, and it just was a really fun, really unique monster. That I think it's what made the film for me. Just this really creative monster that they used to kind of be the mascot and the driving force of the movie.
Yeah, I had a couple of problems watching it at first, and I'm not really sure what was going on that end. But I popped it back on today, and everything worked fine, so I was able to watch it in its entirety. And I know you like it a lot, but I gotta say, overall, I feel it's just kind of so-so. I was talking to you earlier, and that the ending bit, that trailer at the end, I think really is the best part of the movie. But overall, while it does have some pretty funny moments, it's just, I don't know. I think my tastes are just a little bit different than yours, and for some reason I just didn't get into it quite as much as it sounds like you did. I definitely did enjoy it. It just quite wasn't for me. At the end of the day, which I'm sorry to say, man, but that's the way the Tokyo Tower crumbles.
Well, I mean, that's okay. I'm not expecting you to like everything exactly as much as I do. That'd probably make for a really boring podcast otherwise. I just, I really enjoyed it because it's a kind of short and independent thing that I would have made back when I was still trying to make movies. And I liked that part of it, the fact that it was just these guys doing a tribute to their favorite style of film, and my favorite style of film. But I'm very much excited about anything giant monsters. I love, absolutely anything that genre brings to the table. And so it could have been a lot worse, and I still would have really liked it, I think.
Because I was thinking lately, and I know you and I are both really, really stoked for the Godzilla remake, reboot, whatever they're technically calling it, especially because Mr. Takarada, one of the most famous Godzilla actors, who's actually... he was an actor in the original. He's cameoed in, I want to say, like 4 or 5 other ones, including Final Wars.
Yeah.
I guess there was originally kind of like a campaign to get him into it, and through someone's power, he is apparently going to be in the film after all. So that has me really excited, but also really kind of has me excited, I think, even more than the American version, is Japan's going to have something in the works. I mean, because that's the whole thing about next year, is they're basically releasing it on his 60th anniversary, aren't they?
I would have to check to see if the dates coincide, but Godzilla's anniversary, if I remember right, is toward the end of the year. I want to say it's in the like the October to December mark, somewhere toward the end of the year.
Let me see here.
And
but because I mean, it's one of those things where. And again, I don't know if this is, I'm just not looking at the proper channels, but it doesn't seem like Japanese films, and again, this could be the fact that it's in Japan and not here in the US, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of hype for when their movies come out. Like with this latest Pokemon movie that they're working on, to get slightly off subject here, this latest Pokemon movie that's coming out, I want to say within the next month or two, there still isn't that much fanfare for it. There's a little bit, but there doesn't really seem to be much. So I'm wondering, they've got something in the works. Whether or not they've reported it, yeah.
Well, I would argue, I mean, we're just not exposed to the marketing. You and I are online all the time. We're not seeing, like, the commercials running between kids' cartoons in Japan and the Happy Meal toys and the billboards and stuff. I'm sure there are still huge marketing blitzes, especially for stuff as big as Pokemon. And we're just not aware of it yet.
But yeah, I just looked it up, and you were right. It was November 3rd, 1954.
Yeah, I know.
So the year is right, but the dating, which I think is May or June of next year for the remake, is a little bit off. So, but I'm curious to see what Japan has in store for us.
Well, the reason I remembered it was November-ish is because I always take that date off of work so I can watch Godzilla movies.
That is a great plan.
It's kind of horrible of me because sometimes sometimes I won't have remembered to schedule the day off, and I'll have to come up with an excuse, and I really hope no one hears that.
Oops.
Yeah. No, nobody that listens to this is going to have any control over my work schedule or my employment, so I'm okay.
Yeah, all right, so yeah, like Nathan was saying, it's called Gehara, the dark and long-haired monster. It is on YouTube.
I'm actually gonna put a link to it in the description of this podcast when it goes up on YouTube, and
sounds good.
Yeah, I'll be tweeting some links to it too because I want to see what people think about it. I want to hear more people's opinions on it. It's just a very fun, very clever, short little movie. I guess Andrew didn't like it quite as much as I did, but That's okay. I tend to be super enthusiastic about stuff anyway. So I'm used to being the one that's like super fanboy, and then everyone else is like, it was all right.
That's that's my end on Sentai.
Oh,
actually.
Well, yeah. We're gonna have to do a whole episode on Sentai stuff, and I'll just be very quiet in the background, like, oh yeah, that's great, guys.
Be nice for a change.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey.
So kind of going back to Final Wars and Cloverfield. Final Wars, as most of you folks know, was the 50th anniversary Godzilla flick, the last movie to be released in Japan, the end of the Millennium series, and of course, really the only thing Godzilla related to come out in the last few years. I know over the years there have been a couple of rumblings over new movies, including a 3D movie featuring Hedorah, of all things, once again.
Yeah, Godzilla 3D to the max was going to be a... I want to say they were going to try to make it IMAX 3D for a while.
Yeah.
But it was going to be Godzilla and like this Hedorah incarnation called Deathla, or Deathra. And I thought it looked really good, but apparently the guy that was trying to direct that, he's the one that was able to drum up the publicity needed to get the current Legendary Films Godzilla movie off the ground.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, so it sounds like we still have his influence in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Final Wars, I really think it's my favorite Godzilla. I know some people don't like it, especially the Godzilla design, which I swear I've heard been referred to as a duck before.
I can kind of see where people are coming from with that. I think that's a really harsh criticism of it. I don't think it looks like that. But I know some pretty hardcore old school Godzilla fans who like grew up watching the movies in the 60s and 70s as they were being aired on TV after they'd been in theaters. And so I know some people that were really that have very strong opinions about Final Wars.
Yeah. And you actually have a bit of a strong opinion about one particular scene, if I recall.
Well, it's pretty obvious how I feel about this film. Okay, for a little bit of backstory, I have very strong opinions about the TriStar Godzilla film from 1998, the first American attempt at a Godzilla film, which is very rightly regarded as a horrible, irredeemable travesty of a film that has done more to ruin and destroy the Godzilla franchise than anything else ever could have done in the history of mankind.
I own that one too.
It is nothing short of a war crime. But the one
I like it.
I know, and I never forgiven you for that. But the only good thing that this film brought us was the fact that Japan and Toho Studios specifically really did not like that version of Godzilla, that design for Godzilla. And they disliked it so strongly that they not only referenced it in Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, but they also used that design in Final Wars.
They basically retcon and say, no, that wasn't Godzilla.
Yeah, they basically say, oh, the Americans thought this was Godzilla, but it wasn't. But they also used that design in Final Wars as a creature called Zilla, who Godzilla
played by Frank
destroyed.
Welker. He was played by Frank Welker.
Oh yeah, he was, which, it's great that Frank Welker got some work. I'm glad for him for that. We all take bad roles on from time to time. But they use the Zilla design in Final Wars for a fight with the actual Godzilla that takes place in Sydney.
First major fight.
I wouldn't consider it the first major fight. The mutants fight Ibira at the beginning of the film, and there's training stuff that I would consider major fights.
Fair enough.
But there's the Godzilla fights Zilla in Sydney, Australia, and the fight lasts about 20 seconds or so in length, and it's just Godzilla knocking him out of the air with his tail and then obliterating him with atomic breath. And I love that because as a response by Toho Studios and the official owners and creators of Godzilla to this insult upon the franchise, it is perfect. It is flawless. It makes me super happy.
And then one of the things about Final Wars is just because I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to the subtitled stuff, I really want to see the original Japanese production with subtitles, and as shameful as it is, it's for especially one scene in particular, and it's it's the scene where Rodan attacks. Is it New York?
Oh, I don't want to talk about that.
Because
I'm going to be quiet for a little while. You can go through this scene.
Well, we won't go into specifics because I know it's a painful scene for Nathan.
Yeah.
I want to hear what that cop originally sounds like.
Like in the Japanese.
Yeah,
okay.
because he's clearly saying some stuff that is not being said, and I don't just mean bad dubbing.
Yeah, like the dialogue is totally different from what's being subtitled or dubbed.
But it's just, it doesn't fit. The voice that they picked doesn't even really fit the build of the cop at all, so...
I don't know what was going on there. That entire scene really should not have been in the film.
Yeah.
And I could go on a whole rant about the subtext behind that and my opinions on this in Japanese film, but I'm not gonna open up that can of worms. I don't really want to touch it.
That's a giant-sized can of worms for a movie about giant monsters.
Yeah, there's been a couple giant worms in movies, but I guess that's not our subject either. But in general, I really like Final Wars. I can understand some of the criticisms people have behind it. It's not as monster-heavy as I would have liked, and some of the designs don't look as much as their older versions as I think they maybe should. But I think
people
it's a
bitch
really...
about Gigan a lot, too, don't they?
I've never... Gigan is like the Wolverine of the Godzilla franchise. He's just the guy who's supposed to be extreme and to the max and has all the blades. And so I don't have any issues with Gigan's redesign in Final Wars for that reason.
I don't know if that analogy is very correct, because Wolverine is overall a fairly decent guy, and Gigan's a bit of a douchebag.
Oh, and Wolverine's kind of a douchebag, too, if we want to get into
but he doesn't have a habit of deserting people mid-fight. Maybe he does, and I just don't read enough comic books.
I've seen some fights where that's happened, but whoa, I don't want to get into, comic book stuff, because we got a whole episode about that to do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
But, aside, like, Gigan's design, people might not have liked. Godzilla's design, I know a lot of people disliked. I've heard some complaints, pretty consistent complaints about the soundtrack from a friend of mine who doesn't like the direction that the movie soundtrack was taken in. But I personally really enjoyed Final Wars, and I'd like to see the Japanese subtitled version someday, because I've only seen it in Russian with subtitles.
So you've seen it? So you've seen the English dub, and you've seen it in Russian?
I have not seen the English dub. I've only seen...
Wait, what?
I've only seen Japanese audio and subtitles, but with Russian speakers talking very loudly over the Japanese audio so that Russian audiences can understand what's being said.
That's pretty hilarious.
It's a very inefficient and mentally overwhelming way to listen to the film. It's not what I'd recommend.
Sounds like Russian to me.
But I do have Final Wars on DVD, and I need to sit down and just watch it subbed or dubbed so I can get a better feel for it. Because I really do love it, even just in loud Russian audio over every other audio track form.
Yeah. So Final Wars. Watch it. It's awesome.
It's very good.
And then, of course, moving on to Cloverfield, which is one that you and I, we talk about this one a lot.
Oh, good heavens. I could go on for days about Cloverfield, and I have done so in the past.
Yeah, I believe it. But yeah, Cloverfield is one that was produced. Was it directed by J.J. Abrams, or did he just produce it?
I believe he produced it, and Matt Reeves was the director.
That's right.
Yeah.
Boy, man, I need to brush up on my info before these things.
I just kind of remember it because I read about it every once in a while. I'll just I'm on Wikipedia. I'll go read about Cloverfield again. Yeah.
Those were the days. But I remember, actually, Cloverfield's one of those ones where I remember a lot about reading into it, because actually the first teaser was in front of the first live-action Transformers movie.
Oh, right.
And as we'll get into later on, I am a huge fan of the Transformers movies, the live-action Transformers movies. It's actually my favorite film franchise of all time. I do not regret that statement in the slightest. As much as I love Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Transformers is still overall my favorite film franchise.
That is a terrifying opinion to have.
Well, wouldn't be mine if it wasn't.
Fair enough.
To kind of set the stage, and again, a lot of people were hyped for the Transformers movies. They wouldn't have made that much money if they weren't.
Well, that's true.
So kind of, go back 8 years or so I'm still, a slightly older teenager, but I'm still hyped as hell.
Yeah,
just a young lad. I'm hyped as hell for Transformers, and so I sit down, and all of a sudden I have this amazing what the hell is going on teaser thrusted in front of me, and it was just incredible. And of course, the trailer is just kind of balls out and saying, what's going on. You don't see anything except, of course, the iconic head of Statue of Liberty just being hurled down a New York street,
Yeah.
and then of course the guy screaming, "What is that? What is that?" off camera. And it was one of those things where everybody was deliberating it on the internet. What is this? What's it gonna be? What's it gonna look like? Things like that. And they did set up a bit of an expanded universe to it, but there wasn't much to go on back then, and there still isn't much to go on now. I know there's a comic book that features a second monster, and it kind of clears things up a little bit. And then on the Blu-ray they have a special investigative mode, which reveals some backstory. But overall, I feel like there's still a lot of information lacking that I definitely would want to see brought to light.
Well, there's absolutely a lot of unexplored territory there, at least as far as what we've seen on film. I would kind of argue, just because I was neck deep in the viral marketing for it, I would argue that the expanded universe actually explains where it came from pretty decently. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions in that area. You have to have been following the viral marketing and stuff, and you have to do some digging online to kind of get that backstory now. But for me, I felt like going into the film, I wasn't really missing a lot of the origin story or a lot of where it came from. I just wanted to finally see what it looked like. Because that was kind of my experience with it too, as we went into Transformers, which was, it was okay. It was whatever. But I saw this really amazing trailer for this mysterious monster movie, and then I was just on the viral marketing from that day forward for the months and months leading up to its actual release, which I took off of work so I could be in the theater on opening day.
I saw it by myself.
I believe I saw it with my grandparents, actually, of all people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
reminds me of the time my grandparents, of all people, went to see 40-Year-Old Virgin. That was kind of awkward.
I'd never seen it. I didn't think it looked very good, so I didn't see it.
It's funny, but again...
Speaking of awkward, I watched Black Swan with my parents, and that was, yeah.
I didn't like that one.
It was okay. I just, it's not a good movie to watch with your parents, is the takeaway there.
It's a little awkward.
Yeah.
Boy, we are really good at getting on tangents.
Well, I was staying on topic for the most part. I was doing okay. I don't know about you.
But I think my favorite fact about Cloverfield is they more or less talk, not necessarily, of course, in the movie, but kind of behind the scenes and expanded universe and stuff, that the monster seen in the movie is a juvenile.
Oh, it's a baby, yeah.
And that sounds scary enough watching the movie, but some of the other backstory details the fact that it is estimated to be 1,200 feet long from head to tail.
Mm-hmm.
By comparison, Godzilla gets a maximum of, I think, 350 to 500 feet, depending on which movie / dub you're watching.
Well, and obviously that wouldn't stop Godzilla from winning a fight with the Cloverfield monster or its mother. It'd just be a really, really interesting fight to watch because of the huge size disparity. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I think the Cloverfield monster's reach alone is longer than Godzilla, so
I believe so, yeah.
That'd be really interesting. But yeah, Cloverfield is, again, it was one of the earlier, I know Blair Witch Project came before this and everything, but it was one of those earlier found footage movies. And I know a lot of people that I've talked to over the years don't like it, mostly because of that, because it's found footage. It's it's very shaky during a lot of it, and it's just kind of jumbled and stuff like that. And it doesn't really bother me too much because the parts with the monster are intact, and that's what matters to me. Yeah,
it was an artistic and stylistic decision that was really pretty ambitious. It was a very gutsy cinematographic. It was a very gutsy move as relates to cinematography. There we go. And that's the reason a lot of people disliked it. I don't have issues with it, but I'm a big fan of shaky cam films in general, because if they're done right, they can do some really good things. Cloverfield,
which is why things like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity made so much money.
Oh, Paranormal Activity was such a cheap movie to make that they just made, 400 times their budget back. It was technically one of the most successful films of all time.
And then it got franchised.
Well, once we get franchised, we're going to get a lot worse too. So that's, we can't really dog on that too much.
That's true.
Yeah.
You've been warned, people.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be I like some of the additional characters we'll introduce when we're franchised will be fun, but then we'll get into people go off and get new jobs, and somebody has a baby, and the new theme song, and the guest stars, like when we have to do the Tony Hawk episode. It's gonna be kind of not as good as the old stuff, but we'll try to preserve as much of our core ShallowCast roots as we can before we sell out entirely.
Tony Hawk episode, you gotta be kidding me.
What would we even talk about with Tony Hawk?
He was big 20 years ago.
Oh, that's true. I was 20 years ago.
So was I.
Yeah.
Back on track with giant monsters, and I've kind of forgotten what we were talking about.
Well, then let's. I know what we can do. Let's do a change topics noise, and we'll talk about Gamera.
Okay.
All right.
Never get tired of that change topic noise.
It is pretty good, I have to say. It still sounds suspiciously like a giant monster noise. Other than that, yeah, no, it's. I'm just curious about that as well.
Yeah, and Gamera is actually. I think I actually like Gamera overall a little bit more than Godzilla.
You have so many opinions that are just completely wrong. It's really strange.
I know, but it's it's kind of funny because the Gamera trilogy, Gamera works similar to Godzilla in that there were films released during the different eras.
Well, should we explain a lot of people don't even know who Gamera is. Like my parents are not going to know who Gamera is. A few of our listeners will not. So we should maybe talk about.
Our parents don't count as listeners.
Oh, my parents do.
Fine.
I just for the sake of thoroughness, we should at least mention that Gamera was invented by I believe the studio is called Daiei.
Yeah, I think it was too.
Yeah, by Daiei Studios, or Studio Daiei, maybe. And Gamera is a giant turtle who can sometimes breathe fire, and in his later incarnations can actually fly, which I have to admit is pretty cool. But he was created as an answer to Godzilla, and along that same vein, there was a period where his films were very kid-friendly, and he was actually described as the friend of all children. And then he got kind of a reboot, which was gritty and dark, and he was a much more imposing and frightening figure. And then he got kind of his Millennium Series intro with Gamera the Brave.
Movie.
Yeah, he got
one movie in the Millennium Series.
Which I'm very happy to talk about. I've actually written a review of Gamera the Brave for a website that I used to write movie reviews for, and I can link to that
I've
too.
I've never seen it.
Really?
Actually, the Heisei series of Gamera movies, it's actually a trilogy, and it's an interlocking trilogy. Was actually the second Blu-ray set I ever owned when I first got a Blu-ray player, because it's super cheap. I think it's still, I've been seeing it at Walmart lately, it's still like $8 for all 3 movies on Blu-ray.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, so the Heisei movies, one I actually saw, the first in the Heisei series I actually saw when I was a kid, and I've been keeping an eye out for it all these years, and I think it is my favorite. All the other two have a wide variety of awesome scenes, but the first one I think is still my favorite. But yeah, the Showa series. So the Heisei series I saw when I was a kid, and then they're the ones that I own right now. And I like them a lot. And from what I understand, while I've read up on the Millennium Series entry, it sounds kind of meh. So
to be honest, I think you might really like it. Hang on a second. I want to look up where I wrote that review for, because I want to be able to plug that website if I can. The thing about Gamera the Brave, though, which is kind of the Millennium Gamera film, it's very much a kids' film, in the same way that the original Gamera films, or some of the early Gamera films, were kids' movies. There's a young boy that finds the Gamera turtle as an infant, and he hatches it and takes care of it until it gets larger. And I actually really like it because it almost has a Spielberg feel to it, where you've got young kids trying to conceal this monster from their parents, kind of like E.T., but with giant monsters.
Oh, so that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, I really think if you gave it a shot, you might enjoy it. because it does have kind of that Spielbergian sense of wonder, and it's very cute, and it's very sincere. And you'd actually really like Zadis, the monster that Gamera fights. You'd really enjoy his design, I think. I think you should pick it up, honestly.
Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll look into it.
Yeah.
But it looks like, yeah, you were right. He was created by a company called Daiei, and actually, it came to prominence here in the States back in the 70s. They were rebroadcasting them on TV or whatever, and then during the 90s, you had the high sci stuff going on in Japan, and the Showa stuff was becoming big over here when Mystery Science Theater 3000 started riffing on them. And they riffed on a couple of Godzilla movies from that same era, but they actually riffed on 5 different Gamera movies, which I think is the most the largest amount of like a series that they've ever riffed on. They actually released a DVD and Blu-ray set a couple years back. But yeah, that was kind of how Gamera got big here in the States, was TV rebroadcast and Mystery Science Theater, which is, of course, something we've talked about before that we're both huge fans of.
Oh, absolutely. I did find it. My Gamera the Brave review was published on a website called The Midnight Monster Show. It's at midnightmonstershow.com. A friend of mine, Rob Silvera, runs that website, and he reviews movies. He got a short story published in an anthology that's a tribute to Plan 9 from Outer Space. He's a really talented guy, and I think you should check his stuff out. And he does host a review that I've written on his site, so I'm plugging both his website and my own writing.
So we'll have that in the link dump.
Yeah, it's a good little film. I think you'd really like it, Xander, if only because at the end you do get to see some really good fights with Gamera and Zadis, and it does open with the original Gamera fighting off a bunch of the Gaiaos birds. And so,
I actually saw. I like those Gaiaos a lot. I actually saw. As you know, Kaijusaurus, the Tumblr that you and I both follow, and they're constantly talking about stuff. Somebody actually asked them the other day who would win in a fight, Rodan or Gaiaos, and they, whoever happens to run that blog, did actually cast their vote towards Gaiaos, which I thought was a little bit interesting. Just because you don't really think about it that way. I think the scaling's off a little bit too, but maybe if they swarmed or something.
Well, I think everybody has their ideal who would win matchups. I mean, we could go on for hours and hours about ours. Obviously, Godzilla's going to win every single one of mine ever, even against Cloverfield, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. But that's a fight that I could see going either way. The Gaiaos birds, when they swarm, seem like they're really dangerous. One of them that's large enough and as big as Rodan could do some pretty serious damage, I think.
Yeah, because the final one in the first Gamera movie does get pretty big.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if we're talking about Rodan versus Super Gaiaos, or Fire Rodan versus Super Gaiaos, or however you want to do that. But yeah, that would be interesting.
It would at the very least be a really interesting matchup at like the beginning of Godzilla versus Gamera, and then Godzilla and Gamera would team up against like some version of King Ghidorah that was fused with Iris, and then they wouldn't actually fight; they'd team up. Because
That'd be terrifying.
I'd be really into that film, but you'd have to do it like a Batman-Superman matchup where you don't actually show a winner, even though the Batman-Superman matchup is really stupid. Because anyway, we're not going to do comic books right now.
Oh,
but that's the analogy.
Comics again.
But that's the analogy I'm using to say that what you got to do is have those two iconic characters maybe fight a little bit, but you can't show a conclusive winner. You've got to have them team up against something bigger, and then Godzilla can go back to the sea, Gamera can fly off into space, every fan is happy without having to argue about who should have actually won the fight.
Then again, depending on which iteration we're talking about for Gamera, he's from the sea too.
Oh, that's true, but I just wanted them to have thematically different exits from the film.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This is why you write movies and I don't.
Well, I've written a couple. I haven't done that in a while. I'm mainly doing fiction and stuff, but that's how I would end the film if I were to make one.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, I would not say no if somebody asked me to write a Gamera versus Godzilla script and they were going to make it a film. I would never turn that down. I'd be terrified, but I wouldn't turn it down.
Make this movie film for me.
Yeah, I would do that.
So I guess I'm trying to think of ways to keep this going. so it doesn't get tired. I guess let's talk a little bit about fights. We were talking about just now about the fighting and stuff like that. Your favorite kaiju fight of any of the movies, eras, anything like that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh wow. That's a huge category. I would honestly have to say, okay, I've got a couple fights that really stand out to me. One of them was the first time that Godzilla fought Gigan, and Gigan drew blood. One of the few times you've seen Godzilla bleed.
Right, because that is a big moment,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, for me as a little kid, I was terrified of that. Because, I'd fallen, I'd gotten scraped up, I'd gotten hurt before, but I'd never seen that happen to Godzilla. And all of a sudden, realizing that Godzilla can bleed and could maybe even die was really scary for me. I was a little frightened of Gigan for a while, seeing those kind of blades, and I still will cringe when I see him use those in a fight with Godzilla, because there's actual laceration happening there, and it's really kind of worrisome. I would say that's a really big fight for me, because it's kind of scary and it kind of ups the stakes for Godzilla films.
Right, definitely.
I would say there are fights in Final Wars that are really, really fun. I on my Facebook and Tumblr, I posted the fight between Godzilla, Rodan, King Caesar, and Anguirus, which is a fun one to watch.
That is a fun one to watch.
But I actually also really do like the fight between Gamera and Iris at the very end of the film, when Gamera's got to cause major damage to himself in order to win the fight.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for a way to bring that up, because
okay,
that is
go for it.
a great scene. Basically, what happens, I don't know if I want to spoil this, but it's so much fun to talk about. Basically, Iris has Gamera up against the wall, has him pinned.
Just like in that fanfic you wrote.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
You're never going to let me live that down. Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
What happens is Iris has him pinned against the wall, and is draining his power. And so what happens is Gamera blows his own hand off to free himself from Iris, and Iris, having stolen some of Gamera's power, actually starts firing fireballs back at Gamera. And what Gamera does is, because it's his own energy, he's able to basically reform his hand as a giant fist of energy. Insert Captain Falcon / Gene Gundam joke here. And he basically punches Iris so hard that it explodes. I mean,
we've all done that. We've all punched something hard enough for it to explode.
It's pretty awesome. So that is at the top of my list. But my absolute favorite fight, not only story wise but just over theatrically, is the final fight at the end of Godzilla vs. Destroya, which of course is the big fight between Godzilla Jr. and the meltdown Godzilla, and of course the giant oxygen demon Destroya, that whole fight is just all kinds of insanity.
That movie in general is a really scary, really dark, and a really impressive film. I mentioned this last episode that even though it's technically a series ender for the Godzilla films, or at least it was intended to be, it's still one of the first movies I might use to introduce someone to Godzilla, because the production values are so high and the stakes are so high that this is just the perfect way to say to someone, this is Godzilla, this is what it's about at its absolute best.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's a scary fight, and I can't really watch it and not cry a little bit at the end.
Yeah, that ending is heartbreaking.
That ending kills me, and I don't watch it with other people around, because I lose it a little bit.
It's not the only one he kills.
Hey, that's... Oh.
Hey, you drew first blood with that fanfic bullshit.
Oh, I don't like that. Okay, yeah, no, I guess I deserve that, but geez, made me sad.
But, one thing I think is kind of funny about Godzilla vs. Destroya is how they pull the Super X3 right out of their ass. Like they seriously don't mention it at all, and then all of a sudden, what? The Super X3's going in? And then they go into the whole backstory on it. It's just like, okay, so that's a thing. And then all of a sudden, the entire army is outfitted with this line of cooling, non-explosive weapons that seem to work against everything. So it's just kind of, I don't know, it just feels awkwardly thrown in.
I don't know. I think at that point what we're supposed to assume is that they've built up such an arsenal over the decades of previous kaiju attacks and previous Godzilla fights that they're just like, they've got something there for every situation. So they can just kind of drag it out of storage and hope it works.
Cold storage, maybe.
Well, you gotta run some of these jokes by me before we record.
Nah, it's more fun springing them on you.
I disagree. What's another good kaiju fight? I'm trying to think of some that I really liked.
If I might bring one up, actually, this I don't know how I went this long without mentioning it.
Oh yeah,
but there is a great Godzilla comic series. It's actually ended now, but it's Godzilla: The Half Century War.
Oh, I need to reread that. I've got all those and I haven't read them again.
You've been reading them the whole time?
I have the trade paperbacks of like 4 different Godzilla comics on my in my iBooks.
Well, you don't have it for this one then, man, because this one, like I said, this one just ended.
Okay, yeah.
But it's kind of an alternate retelling of Godzilla. There's definitely some stuff going on that doesn't obviously happen in the actual continuity. And my favorite scene is is one I actually told you about. There's 2 scenes I really, really like. There's a scene of it's Godzilla and Mechagodzilla 2 temporarily team up against Space Godzilla, and then it's Godzilla and Kiryu, who is also known as Mechagodzilla 3, fighting Gigan and King Ghidorah, and that's actually in the final book, and it's just the whole series is just phenomenal. It's very obviously written by an American, just because of the way that the characters talk and things like that. But the art is just phenomenal.
Is this the one that Matt Frank did all the covers for, or did a lot of the covers for?
No. Matt Frank's doing the work on the series. I think it's just called Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another series starting up because that one's ending too. There's another series starting up soon. I don't remember what it's called, but that one's going to have him doing the artwork as well.
Okay.
Those who don't know, Matt Frank is a fairly prominent artist for Godzilla-related stuff, and he actually kind of had his own little side project going on for a while.
He's incredibly talented as far as Godzilla and giant monster art in general goes. He's easily one of the best.
So, but yeah, that's another series coming out soon, I think in June, so I'm going to be picking that up as well. But yeah, Godzilla Half Century War, like I said, it's a 5-issue run, just ended, so I'm assuming the trade paperback will be out in the next month or so, hopefully. And I'm going to pick that up even though I own all the issues because it's worth owning. Yeah.
I'm looking at my my iBooks right now. I've got Godzilla Legends, I have 3 Kingdom of Monsters trades, and I have the Gangsters and Goliaths run too. Those are the 3 that I've gotten here.
Yeah, so those are all other series that I haven't read myself.
Which I would highly recommend them.
Oh yeah, I bet. So I'm wondering, do you want to kind of wrap up with some of the black eyes of kaiju films?
Black eyes, just like the absolute travesties and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because I know we've already talked about Godzilla '98.
I could go on about Godzilla '98. I mean, I'm not done about how much I hate it.
But there's some other stuff. There's some other stuff in there. Like, I know Godzilla's Revenge, I think, is kind of reviled as well, isn't it?
Godzilla's Revenge is an incredibly unpopular kaiju film. It was very, very blatantly directed specifically at children. It's about a little boy who dreams about going to Monster Island and having a Minya, or Baby Godzilla, help him fight bullies and stuff. It's very much a kid-friendly fantasy wish fulfillment movie. The only thing I really wish had been retained from it was Gabara's design, or Gabara, I think it's Gabara, because he's really like this lizardy, ogre-looking kaiju that bullies Minya. He's got a good design to him, but the film, I fell asleep during it. I've never fallen asleep during any Godzilla movie, but I fell asleep during Godzilla's Revenge.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. And then, of course, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon is a bit of a black eye as well. There's
some good ideas in there. If only the fact that they established Godzilla's size is 30 stories high, that's just a good benchmark to have.
Yeah.
But then you get stuff like Godzuki. Any baby version of Godzilla in general should be met with suspicion. But Godzuki, Godzilla's nephew, was just a terrible, terrible addition to the franchise, and I'm really glad that the Hanna-Barbera stuff is not, considered canon and isn't used or referenced anymore.
That's good for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
And then it's weird because as bad as Godzilla 98 was, it actually spawned an animated series featuring the baby scene at the end. Basically, brief summary. It's kind of similar to the Hanna-Barbera cartoon in that Dr. Nico Totopoulos is imprinted on by this infant Godzilla, and because of that, they form a special government science agency thing that goes around fighting other giant monsters that have just started showing up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
As giant monsters are known to do. And I remember watching a couple of episodes of that as research for what we used to do called what was it? TV and Twitter Tuesday, something along those lines.
I don't remember what we were gonna call it. Something like that. Yeah.
With some sort of goofy alliteration.
Well, yeah.
But it was one of those things where it was just so bad. The theme song is awesome. The theme song is really, really great.
I don't remember anything about it except for the art being okay and the theme song being pretty good. But I don't remember anything that happened in it. And I remember
the art is pretty good too.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I think I'm gonna go watch it just because there's one particular set of episodes I want to watch. They actually have, I don't know if it's actually the Zillions or who it is, but again, as is wont to do in giant monster movies, aliens show up and resurrect the original Zilla used in Godzilla 98 with cybernetic parts. And so now Cyberzilla and this child of it they fight each other.
Okay.
So again, I haven't seen it recently. I'm gonna go watch it after this recording, and maybe talk about it on Twitter a little bit. But yeah, that's another one of those things where it's just like, this could be either okay or this could be even worse than the movie. So, but yeah, so that's, I mean, some of the black eyes on the kaiju franchises in general. I'm sure we're missing a couple, but those are, of course, the common ones.
Well, I'm reminded, we were talking about Final Wars, and I wanted to mention this earlier. There's a pretty good fight in Final Wars, I have to say, I forgot to mention. And you can't see my face right now, but this is my smug voice.
Your smug voice.
Do you remember the fight I'm talking about?
I don't. I should,
okay.
Because I just watched it, but I don't know I don't remember which fight you're talking about.
Well, I'm actually talking about during the midpoint of the film, that little kid that sees Godzilla on the TV, and before he sees Godzilla on TV, he's playing with Godzilla toys and a giant turtle toy, and he screams at the toy turtle that it's a loser and throws it down. And it's just this hilarious Gamera. It's just this hilarious insult to Gamera in the middle of Godzilla Final Wars, and I love it.
He throws it into the goddamn fireplace is what he does. I know what you're talking about now.
It's hilarious.
I thought you were talking about Don Fry being a badass.
Oh, dude, I love Don Fry in the Godzilla films. It's amazing. He's easily the highlight of the human cast in Godzilla Final Wars. But no, I was just thinking of that little slam on Gamera just out of nowhere in the middle of Final Wars.
And then you get spooked by Anguirus,
which I thought was great.
Yeah. Because you actually like Anguirus a lot, don't you?
He's one of my favorite. For a long time, he was just my very favorite kaiju in general. I'm kind of tied between Anguirus and Baragon as my favorite non-Godzilla kaiju. But I love Anguirus. I adore him. He's got such a great design. As a character, he's really interesting because he's super loyal to Godzilla, and he doesn't win a lot of his fights, but he's incredibly tenacious, and he's softened up a lot of bad guys for Godzilla to kill over the years. I'm a huge Anguirus fan.
He's pointy cannon fodder.
He is adorable and precious, and he is very good at his job, and he's great, so hush. If you want to talk about people who should be cannon fodder, I could go on for another 45 minutes about how much I hate Mothra, but I don't want to.
That's right. I remember us talking about that.
I can't stand Mothra.
And it's the design and just the concept more than anything else, right?
I don't have an issue with the design so much. I have an issue with the fact that Mothra, especially when Mothra was at the height of its popularity, was positioned as like the replacement Godzilla. Mothra kept showing up and being portrayed as this thing that could defeat Godzilla really easily or could damage him severely. And it was really frustrating for someone who loves Godzilla to see Mothra being so obviously positioned as, hey, we're going to build up this franchise. We're going to make Mothra really popular. Kids, Mothra is great too. And it was really transparent, even as a child. And I was offended and a little insulted that they were trying to build Mothra up by tearing Godzilla down. If there had been another way to do it, and if they'd done it more elegantly, I would have been okay with it. But Mothra is really consistently shown as, hey, Mothra is better than Godzilla, Mothra is more popular than Godzilla, Mothra is awesome and great, and Godzilla sucks compared to Mothra. And it's that really blatant and really insulting method of portrayal that's always bothered me. And
the biggest moment that I could think of is Mothra and Godzilla Battle for Earth. Like, they spend this whole movie talking about how, Batra is like the product of the evil in the world and stuff like that. And then by the end of the movie, they're teaming up and dumping Godzilla in the ocean. I
haven't even seen that one because I've intentionally avoided all the movies that star Mothra.
And that one does pretty heavily.
Yeah. So I've kind of avoided it. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to support Mothra. I will not support this pro-Moth agenda in my giant reptile propaganda film.
Pro-Moth agenda. That's actually pretty funny.
I thought it was good.
That's gonna be a T-shirt. I'm calling it now.
I want a T-shirt that says support the pro-Moth agenda or something. It'd be hilarious. That'll have to be like our first piece of merchandise or one of the later ones.
Oh, that's gonna be so great.
It's really good, actually. Yeah.
So you want to start wrapping up and ramble for another 20 minutes?
I guess we should. Yeah, I was going to say wrap up for us is really just another half hour of talking.
I'm trying to think of something that's kind of good to transition away from. Aside from giant monsters, as much as we could go on, it's again we don't want to get stale. I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, since we're talking about monsters and we're talking about Japan, how do you feel about this new Mewtwo form?
Oh, the Pokemon. Okay, the Pokemon thing.
Yeah.
I don't care because excuse me, sorry, I'm still a little congested. I had a cold about a week and a half ago, and it's still kind of going away. No, I don't care very much. Mewtwo, even as a kid, was really just this overpowered, overrated, super popular Pokemon that I really was not very interested in. Kind of like how everybody loved Charizard and everybody loved Mewtwo, and was like, no, there's better designs, there's more interesting Pokemon. I don't care about Mewtwo. And so, I get what they're doing by giving him a new form and giving him a way to change his looks. It brings back one of the most popular and iconic designs in Pokemon history, but I've never cared enough about him to be that interested in his new design. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's fine then, and I move on. So
your opinion basically is very similar to mine. That I personally love the design.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that just this idea of bringing back, can't talk. All things considered, he is the most powerful Pokemon of the original generation.
Yeah.
And he's also one of course, being the star of the first movie, he's also very, very iconic. And I think it's really cool that they're bringing him back and kind of, again, reinventing him for this new generation. But a lot of people on Tumblr are losing their minds over this basically insult to Mewtwo, and they're talking about how it's gonna mess up all of his cannons and everything like that, and I'm just like, people are losing their minds over a children's video game.
Well, a lot of people in general have been really offended and angry about the new Pokemon generation anyway. I've actually really liked these designs more than most other generations' designs, and I may like them more than a lot of the first generation in general. What Game Freak did was they very intentionally made callbacks to the original designs. They referenced old type combinations and old Pokemon themes as far as evolution goes. We had like Muck and Grimer in the first version, and then we get Trubbish and Garbodor in whatever version we're on now, like 5th gen or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's 5th gen,
and
then
it's just
X and Y will be 6th.
Yeah, it's just very clever and very, like, if people realized that they were really catering to their nostalgia and were able to get their heads out of their Pokédexes long enough to realize that that's what's happening, they wouldn't be as offended and complaining about unoriginality as much, because there's really clever stuff happening there, and it's very calculated. But, nerds get mad about things that are not the things they liked the first time around.
Yeah, so... and then of course, Eevee is getting a new evolution as well.
Which I don't care about.
I just want to know what his type is already. I'm tired of them jerking us around, but again, silly stuff to get upset over because it's a children's video game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's like, as far as talking about things we're looking forward to, is that kind of the big video game you're waiting on right now?
Yeah, that's the big one. There's a couple other ones coming out before then. In May, there's Project Cross Zone, which is a multi-company. I think I mentioned it last time. There's a multi-company fighter crossover featuring a lot of different characters from things like Dot Hack and Resident Evil, Mega Man X, and I mean countless others. I think there's close to 200 playable characters.
Oh, you did mention that to me, actually.
And then like another 100 NPCs or something like that are from other games. So that one I'm looking forward to. That one's supposed to come out sometime in May, I believe.
Okay.
And then June sees Animal Crossing New Leaf, which I think you've been talking about too.
That's the game I'm most excited about. Probably for this year. I haven't decided if I'm going to buy Pokemon X and Y yet, but I'm definitely picking up Animal Crossing. And after it comes out, nobody will ever see or hear from me again.
There's another one coming out called Last of Us.
Which you mentioned last time, yeah.
I did mention that last time, but again, just because it's what I'm looking forward to. And that one looks like it's pretty good. One thing I'm actually incredibly excited about, and I actually now have to buy a Wii U because of it. They announced the other day that the Earthbound Virtual Console release that happened in Japan a couple weeks ago will be coming over here at some point this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as I might have mentioned last time, Earthbound's actually one of my all-time favorite video games. It's probably my favorite Super Nintendo game.
Okay.
And so it's just, I know that there are emulators and things like that, but to have an actual official re-release on a console, on a high-definition console, nonetheless, is pretty darn exciting for me. I do kind of wish it was on the 3DS, because I believe that I don't think Virtual Console stuff is in 3D, but anyway, I think the 3DS could run it no problem, because the graphics are very, very, very basic, because it's Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
And I think if it wasn't 3D somehow, it would look great because of the top-down viewpoint. But yeah, so that's that it is what it is. I just need to figure out how to set money aside for a Wii U while trying to get a new apartment. Another cool thing that I thought was pretty neat, and again, it's not a franchise I'm big on, but I've been watching the Game Grumps playing Legend of Zelda, so it's kind of getting me. Boy, I mentioned Game Grumps again.
Yeah.
Seriously, go watch those guys. Put a link in the link dump. They've been playing Legend of Zelda, and it's actually getting a fully fledged in-canon sequel on the 3DS later this year.
Yeah, I actually saw a little bit about that, which it looks pretty cool. One thing I'm actually noticing is, like the fact that you have terrible opinions about movies, my video game opinions are kind of weird, because I've never played Earthbound, and I never really got into Legend of Zelda, so I'm not super, I don't really, it's nice that Earthbound is getting that release that people have been screaming about nonstop for like the past 10 years I've been on the internet. I'm really happy that people will shut up about it for a little while. Even though they'll inevitably find something to complain about when they actually start playing the game. And, I'm excited that there's a new
me.
Zelda, because Zelda's really cool. Twilight Princess was great. Wind Waker is the best of the series, in my opinion.
That one's getting a relaunch on Wii U as well.
Oh, yeah, it's getting like a gorgeous-looking HD remake, which I may actually have to get a Wii U for.
You hear that, Nintendo?
You know what? You know how they got the name Wii U?
How's that?
It's at Nintendo, when somebody gets hurt and they call an ambulance, it goes Wii U, Wii U, Wii U.
And I'm the one that needs to pre-screen the joke?
You know what? Okay, fine. That was one bad joke, and you got like 12.
I'm taller. There's more room.
Yeah, I guess you are taller than me.
Well, I'm out of stuff to talk about for now.
Well, I think we've actually kind of drawn this to a pretty decent conclusion. I mean, just like last episode, we ended with me saying something embarrassing and you mentioning that you're larger than me and therefore could threaten me. We talked about video games, we talked about giant monsters, we talked about the Game Grumps again, and then I made kind of a painfully obvious effort to insist that we have actual continuity and an actual plan for this podcast by kind of trying to ramble my way through making it seem like we had a conclusion of this episode. So, I don't know, I feel like we came full circle again.
Yeah, ShallowCast. Coming
ShallowCast.
full circle with repetition.
No, that's how you do it. So, do you want to just do shameless plugs again, and then we'll call it an episode?
And of course, if you guys have problems hearing us, links in the link dump in the description below. But I am at twitter.com/XanderGrim. That's 1 X and 2 M's. And of course, fwl.tumblr.com, which is my Tumblr. You can go and follow me there and be amused by the random stuff that I post and reblog. Been talking about Fruit Roll-Ups a lot lately. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, and I'm at twitter.com/NathanSaurus, Nafan, and then Saurus, like a dinosaur. And I'm also at tumblr.com I'm at nathansaurus.tumblr.com. Those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Stuff we plugged on this episode included Gehara, the dark and long-haired monster, which we're going to link to the YouTube upload of. I also mentioned the Midnight Monster Show, run by Captain Midnight, Rob Silvera, a friend of mine. We talked about the Game Grumps again, John Jafari and Aaron Hansen, who are Ego Raptor and JonTron, irrespectively. And
So go watch those guys.
Yeah,
their channels.
They're pretty good. They got some good stuff there. I think that's really all of the other people plugging that we need to do. I think that was everything that we brought up during this episode.
Oh, what about the friend Bonaventure?
Oh my god! I'm so sorry. Okay, Bonaventure, Bonaventure, the ridiculously talented and just wonderful individual that made our shiny new logo. She is a great friend of mine. She was actually my first Tumblr friend, and she's just a wonderful person. I'm super happy with how our logo turned out. I cannot stress enough how great it looks and how happy I am with it. She is fantastic, and she is at bonaventure.tumblr.com. Her username has has a dash after the E in Bonaventure, so you have to type that in, or you won't get to her blog. Get to somebody else's Tumblr.
Again, link in the link dump.
Yeah, we will link that thing at the bottom of in the description in the YouTube video, or wherever we upload this to. That is it, though. I think I actually think we have some material for later episodes just from this one, because it's pretty obvious now we have to do a comic book episode here pretty soon.
Yeah. Definitely soon. Guess I'll just start brushing up on some stuff.
Well, we're not going to be done talking about giant monsters too. Once Pacific Rim comes out, we're absolutely going to have a Pacific Rim review and discussion. And
It's gonna be great.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be so good. And I've actually talked to Xander about this quite a bit. We are going to have a couple guest stars on the show once we've established our pattern and established ourselves, and you start to get sick of hearing our voices. Then we'll shake it up by bringing some friends of ours into the mix.
Should be great.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I think we're done, actually.
All right.
I'm done.
I'm done. All right.
Well,
Bye.
thanks for listening, guys. See you next time on ShallowCast.
Still think it sounds like Boner Ventures.
What? No, don't. It ruins it, though.
A happy moment.